Ooh, okay. Yeah, 200. 200 degrees, 500 degrees, 600 degrees! Woo! 700 degrees! I better shut this thing off. I'm gonna unplug it. Wow! Look at that! Ta-da! Yeah, I would start a fire right there at that moment. 36 gauge wire at 2 inches works just fine. Today we're going to experiment with electricity. I just got a new power supply in the mail, this one. The reason why I ordered it was because it has a higher amperage output than the ones I had laying around. That one's off of an answering machine. You can get power supplies a number of ways. Some of them might actually work for you, and some of them might not have enough power to dump into the line to get the wire to glow. The wire could be hot and not glow, and that could be dangerous. The wire could glow suddenly and then immediately ignite whatever it is it's attached to. While we're doing this work today, we're going to be super careful. This is the Schnitt Power. Yeah, this is the Schnitt power supply that I ordered for my plastic bender, and it has a knob to control the output. You can't control current versus voltage like some of these scientific devices that are out there, but you do get a control knob. Never just grab a power cord and play with house current. That's a bad idea. Let's try 24 gauge wire at 2 inches. Oh wow, that's really awesome. Look at that. Oh yeah, I can get a reading on that. So yeah, it jumps well over 100 degrees. Got some smoke coming off of that one. Probably burning the ends of the wires. Yep, definitely. Better turn that. Ooh, wow. Yeah. Have you ever wondered if off really means off? What does it mean to have the power connected but the switch turned off? And why can you detect power or current while the switch is turned off? You know, they say go to the breaker box and turn off the breaker to be safe. Well, this is kind of why. So you take one of these power supplies and you turn it on, and you get 12.33 volts, which is great. That's what I'm shooting for. Measuring current is a little trickier. I can do that. I have a device to measure current. But you kind of have to trust the label if you don't have something to measure the current. So this is hot enough to give you a little bit of a tingle, but it's not going to hurt your heart or burn you in any way. You know, you can see that the power is slowly dropping, but the switch is off. And that's still pushing a little current through those wires. So when you're working with electronics and electrical devices and things like that, just be super careful. I have set up a alligator clip there just so I can hold everything together because I need an extra hand. You can see here that it's still showing a little bit of current running through those wires. Yep, very small amount. Oh, there goes 0. No, no, yes, no. No, definitely not. Nope, yes, no, yes, no. I have this backup power supply. It's also variable. At its lowest setting, it's putting out 4 volts. If I crank it up, we're outside the range. So we're going to go to 200 volts. Now we're at 24.5 volts. So that's putting out considerably more voltage. That's at about 2 amps. So do the math, and that's enough to give you a little bit of a tingle. You don't want to put that on your tongue, but it's not enough to burn you using copper wire. However, if you use Nichrome wire, you can generate some heat with that. I have 2 power supplies that are roughly in the range that I need. They're both variable. One generates about half the voltage of the other at roughly around the same current. So we got 2 shots at this, and we can make this work. Let's try the telephone power supplies. Really expensive tool? Nope. Really cheap tool? Nope. Somewhere in the middle. Hey, that did the trick. Pays to have a lot of tools in your toolbox, or tricks in your bag of tricks. You want to know if something's hot at about 2 amps? Wet your fingers. Before you plug everything in, have a fire extinguisher handy. Don't do this indoors. So we have some battery clamps on either end, and I'm just going to plug it in and we're going to see what happens. But I'm going to stand back first. Nothing. Nothing. 6 volts. Nothing. Okay, so we're running a few volts through this wire right now. And I'm going to slowly turn up the current. Ow! Yeah, that's hot. Yeah, that's generating some heat. Didn't burn my finger. So yeah, I'm up over 100 degrees on the ends here. So first test we ran a fairly middle-of-the-road gauge wire. This is a 36 gauge wire now. It's really thin, so thin you can barely see that. We have our cheaper 24 volt high-end power supply that's adjustable. Let's try the owie test. Yeah, if I hold my finger to that just long enough, that'll start to burn. I'm licking my finger each time. Okay, we're back with the 36 gauge wire. I've got my laser tester handy. Okay, still reading about 80 degrees. And I'm going to plug that in and fire that up. Nothing. Something's not right. Let's see what's going on here. You know, why am I not getting any heat out of the wire there? So I'm at 7 volts going through there right now. So I've got the meter hooked up to it. There's 9 volts. 10. 11. I'm at max now. 12 volts at either end. Nothing. Surprisingly, nothing. Oh, that wire's not tight at that end? Maybe? Okay, yeah, that's the problem. The wire had come undone at the other end. Slowly turn it up. Be careful. Not getting the best result. I'm just doing this to see if I can improve the contact on either end. That might be part of the problem. And as I do that, the wire starts to heat up. So my problem is contact. So let me see if I can fix the contact problem. The first couple of experiments were really terrible. I had very bad contact at either end at the electrodes, which is why when I moved my finger back and forth, the wire started to get hot on my finger. That's a contact problem. So now I plugged in the power supply and we're going to give it another whirl. We're going to go up to a couple volts and see what happens. when I pull on the wire, it gets really hot. Yeah, the more I pull on it, the more it starts to burn. Even though I've got better electrodes at either end, the problem still seems to be contact and my ability to put power through that wire. Okay, no more Mr. Nice Guy. So now we have the car battery power supply. I have switched it to 6 volts. There is enough power here to hurt you. This can burn you. This can get bad. So I would prefer not to play with this kind of power, but that's what we have going on right now. Ready, set, go. Is the problem that the wire is too thin? Maybe the wire gets pinched at the electrodes, and that might be creating more resistance than I need to get that to actually work. So I'm going to repeat the test with the larger gauge wire. Okay, we're back to the 24 gauge wire. We're going to try it one more time. We're going to plug it in 3, 2, 1. We've got power. Ow. Seriously, ow. Yeah. I needed more wetness on my finger there. That wire's hot. Hot enough to sizzle. But not hot enough to get that wire to glow. So we're going to need to up the ante here a little bit. We're back with an initial test rig. I haven't really created decent terminals yet. There's a problem where the ends of the terminals get very, very hot. We discovered that with the first segment with the wires. So we're going to start with about 6 volts, 6.5 volts, which is where we were last time. And we're going to wear our gloves and our safety goggles and have our fire extinguisher ready. Be very careful not to burn yourself. That's why I'm wearing rubber gloves and I have these little paper ends here. We're going to give this a whirl. So what is that, about 4 or 5 inches, right? So I can tell it's getting hot. Can I feel that? Let's just try clipping it directly. And let's crank up the juice. 9. So we can still get that wire to glow pretty hot at about 9 volts. How low can we go? At about 7 volts it tends to taper off. What about 12? Well, the meter's only showing 9 volts right now going through that. So that's affecting the power supply's ability to dump power. Wow, okay. So that's a bit of a problem. Really have to think about that. So let's go back to 0. How hot is it? Don't touch it if you're going to burn yourself. Yeah, that's hot. Rubber gloves were a good idea, right? Yeah, I can feel those alligator clips are pretty hot. So now we're at a longer wire, right? Let's move this other wire out of the way. Move this one out of the way. So we have that loop. So what's that? Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches or so, right? Maybe even closer to 10, right? So not that really long. Not long enough for my tool, but longer. Let's give it a whirl. So we're up to 12 volts now. And that wire is just starting to glow. We're getting a different effect with a longer wire, and it takes a little while for that wire to heat up. So let's go back to that. And how hot are we? Not that hot. Not as hot as we were before. Okay. this is the wire at the distance that I'm going to need for my polycarbonate bender. Turning that up to 12 volts. Interesting. Okay. What's happening? Ow, ow, ow. Yeah, I wet my glove. Yeah, little spit always helps. Yeah, ow, 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 ow. Now, how can I show that that's an ow, 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 ow? Right? So, let's see if we can get that to read. Not really. What if I aim it right at it? Yeah, that's hot enough to burn me. But, you know, using the scientific method, it's just not working. I can see a temperature spike there, but it's not that significant. Very hard to read. So I have to be really careful. When you're touching stuff, just because you have a fancy thermometer doesn't mean that it's, you know, not hot. You have to be really careful. So we're at 12 volts and that wire's not glowing. So I have a bit of a problem. I'm not able to dump enough power using the power supply I have. Let me try a different power supply. The problem with this other power supply is the moment I plug it in, I got about 3 volts. So I have to be really careful about it. And let's center the shot so we can see what's going on, and let's crank it up. Thought I saw the wire move there a little bit. The wire will expand when it's hot. So any movement, you know, might actually indicate a change in temperature. Still can't read it. Tongue test. Yeah, it's hot. Gotta wet your glove. So that's hot, but I can't read it. Alright, is it really working? How do you know? How do you know in TV land that it's working? Nothing, right? Okay, let's move that one out of the way. Now we have this little one, right? Nothing. This power supply is not as effective as the one with the digital display. Look at that. Is it hot? Yeah, it's hot. This time I'm going to try with the clamps directly on the wire to see if that changes anything. Crank up the power. Does the wire move at all? No, not at all. Not at all. One of the things I said earlier was this thing, even when it's all the way down, as long as it's plugged in, it reads. So yeah, it's got some voltage. It's got 2 volts now. Earlier I tested it around 4 volts. It's 2.9 or 3. So now, let's crank it up and see what we get. So we got 3 volts across there. So that's not a lot, really. So what's the difference between this power supply and the other one? Of Garbage truck. If you're going to do stuff like this, be prepared to do fast hookups. And while you're working, always think about safety first. Unplug and then plug in last. Okay, so our probes are apart. We've got the voltage set up. The power unit is attached. Now we go for the plug. Last thing, safety first. We now have power, okay? But this power supply behaves differently than the other one. Nothing, right? Got 7 volts across there. So that wire is glowing red hot now. So we can get 8 volts across there. And I can feel the heat coming off that wire. So at that distance, I should be able to bend my polycarbonate. But I need something that is, that long to do the job. Not that long. So that is my problem. And that other power supply just isn't doing the trick. Let's get out the big one. When you're working with really big power supplies like this, I'm talking physically large. Now, the trick to this is just because it's big doesn't mean it's more powerful. You do have to remember that, go to 6 volts there, that there is a general rule of size. And that is that if you see something that's larger, be more cautious about it. It's the same thing with animals, You don't want to mess with a steer because if he's ornery, he might hurt you. A cat is the same way, smaller, but can still scratch you. So, careful, 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 careful. Now, why? Well, we're at 6 volts. We have a really big power supply here. Now, I could always put my voltmeter on it, right? But, see that? Right? So there's a lot more power there. You can actually hurt yourself with that. 6 volts. Nothing. Oh, hey, the wire's turning red. Look at that. Real slow, but it's working. Okay. 12 volts. Big difference. Whoa! Ooh, that's awesome. I love it. Okay, what about this one? Is the wire changing shape at all? Oh, there it goes. There it goes. That's not sufficient to do the job I want. Okay, so I need that shorter length, or I got to rethink my power supply. What about the big one? What I can do is I can just hook that up like that and just sit back and watch it for a moment. Now, the funny thing about the Nichrome wire is it changes color right before it heats up. So it takes on like a copperish color, and then it starts to glow. The ends here are starting to pick up a copperish color. That's your warning sign. So when you're working with this stuff, take the time to figure out how it behaves. What to watch for. Is the wire growing? When you touch it, will it get hot? These are important things to know. Wear your gloves. Fire safety. Know what you're doing when you're working with this stuff. Be careful, experiment, and have fun with it. Wait a second, I'm not done having fun with this. No, yeah. Ooh, hot. Hot, hot, hot. Hot, hot, hot. Hot, hot. Hot, hot. Hot, hot, hot. Wow. Woohoo! Yeah! Hot. Hot, hot, hot. Wait a second. Wait a second, we gotta... Ooh, okay. Yeah, 200 degrees, 500 degrees, 600 degrees! Woo! 700 degrees! I better shut this thing off. I'm gonna unplug it. Wow! Look at that! The first time I hit a readable 700 degrees was with about a 24 gauge wire. We're at a thicker wire now, 22 gauge. The numbers are reversed. It's just like golf, you know, it really is confusing. So, thicker wire, heavy power supply. I'll put my goggles on here, and we're going to power it up here. I've got the terminals apart. Have to be careful. You should weight them down, because sometimes just plugging in stuff causes things to move. So, you know, will this work any better? I don't know. So wow, that just melted the wire. Okay, maybe this will work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to attach it there. And attach it there. I can see a color change in the wire, and the wire's starting to glow. So it looks like I'm getting a better result with a thicker wire. But I'm not going to get the kind of heat I want out of the distance I need. So I'm just going to disconnect this right now and go to the bigger terminal. And I'm going to bet that's not going to glow at all. So is that changing color at all? I'm getting a little bit of a copper color out of that. Yeah, so color change, not glowing. Not that I can see. And yeah, so I don't have a wire that's suitable for the kind of current that I can put through the wire, the kind of power that I have. So what I want to do is I want to get a bigger power supply, something that is tunable, so I can span the distance and make this thing work properly. Otherwise, I'm just, you know, I've got a non-starter here. But positive thing, I know what's wrong, I know why it's wrong, and I know how to fix it. This is what science is all about. Learning stuff. I changed my setup a little bit. I'm using the high-powered battery tender from Napa. I have a bender which covers a 14-inch span, and to run the wire all the way through is 19 inches. The wire is really starting about there. I'm going to give it a little extra room. So we need to be either here or here. Now the wire, you can barely see it. It's running straight through here. This is the other wire from the other test. So we're just going to go up, straight across, and over this way, and I've raised the wire off the wood using some sockets because, well, you know, if I leave it against the wood, well, you can see what happens. It just burns the wood. So I've got the battery tender fired up, and I've got it at 12 volts. And yep, that's working. What happens when I just touch the wire here from underneath? I can see I get a color change almost immediately. I'm gonna hold the socket with my fingers here and watch what happens as I slide. Ooh, look at that. Okay, so see how bright that's getting? That's about where I want it for the bender, right? I want that kind of brightness. And I don't want to burn out the wire and melt it. If I were to shorten that wire, if I were to slide this way that wire would heat up, melt, and disintegrate. So you can see it's getting brighter, so I don't want to do that. Ooh, that got long. I can see the wire stretching. It's expanding with the heat. So I'm going to bring it back. And I've got some glow, but it's not quite the glow I'm looking for. And the glow follows the contact. So I can make a bender with this power supply that's about 9 inches wide. That's not quite what I want. I want a bender that is 14 inches wide or 19 inches wide. And that's going to help me finish my bender. Wow, hot stuff. Okay, we're back again with the distance test, and here I've got the power supply going. We're going to start with about 10 volts. Okay, and we're going to start about halfway up with the power. All right, so got to come up with a better way for these clippers here. How close do I have to be before I get something good? Right? I got a bit of a problem. These clips are made of plastic. These aren't like the other clips. So not very far on that power supply. That's only a couple inches. That's not going to give me what I need. So let's raise it up. Start way over here. I can see the wire growing. You know, it's stretching as I'm touching it. Getting some smoke. The contact isn't very good, and that is part of the problem. You want the contact to be really solid, but with this power supply and this wire, I'm really only getting about 6 inches out of it. So this power supply at its maximum won't give me enough power to make something that's more than a couple inches wide. And that's not what I want. I need a different power supply, something a lot bigger, something a lot more powerful. A little something about scavenging power supplies. This is a high power 40 volt power supply. It went dead on me, but it still carries a lot of power. There's a certain inherent danger in these things, and that is that they have capacitors in them. They have coils, capacitors. They have a way to store power. So you can unplug this thing, and it can be sitting around for quite a while, and you'll pick it up, and you'll touch the wrong thing, and you'll electrocute yourself. I'm not talking about a little tingle. No, you'll get quite a zap, like an animal fence. So don't mess with these things if you don't know what you're doing, because even unplugged, they carry a charge, and they can blow your socks off. So don't do that. That is really cool. Now that's awesome. Here's something that's really cool. I have a working power supply for my bender. You can hear the fans kicking up. You can see there, they've got enough power to inflate a glove. So I'm going to put them on either side of the bender as a cooling system. Independent, different power supply, and that is just another feather in my cap, another trick in my large bag of tricks.
Two
What did I say? This is Christopher Thunder, and I'll see you next time. Alright folks, let's give it a whirl. Hold it down snug. Double check your bolts. Go for 90, we'll spring back to 45. Oh wow, that takes a lot of strength. Hold it for 10 seconds. 5, 6, 9, 10. Alright. Let's see what we got. Ah, crap. What the hell?